Well, this week, President Biden gave his first State of the Union address. The speech was delivered at a time of tremendous peril, not just for Americans, but for Ukrainians and its neighboring nations, because of an unprovoked Russian invasion that has the potential of sparking a literal World War III. Let's not forget about all the other crises America is facing: the southern border, the rise in violent crime, and inflation. But amid all of this, our commander-in-chief made sure to use his first State of the Union to promote the cause of transgenderism, even for our youngest Americans.
The onslaught of state laws targeting transgender Americans and their families, it's simply wrong. And I said last year, especially to our younger transgender Americans, I'll always have your back as your president so you can be yourself and reach your God-given potential.
Well, is what the president is doing actually helpful to transgender Americans, or is it not? Our own Dr. Jennifer Bauwens, director of our Center for Family Studies, joins me now to discuss this critical question. Dr. Bauwens, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Hey, Joseph, it's good to be back with you.
It's good to see you. Much of this White House response this week, and it has been significant, not just the White House, but the Vice President's office, Health and Human Services has gotten in on this, on condemning the state of Texas, because their governor and attorney general have said that chemical and physical castration for minors who experience gender dysphoria could be investigated as child abuse. What's your take on all this?
Well, it's good to see states standing up for children, and that really have the back of children's. The president says that he has their back, and that's contrary to what we know from the science. And to stand there and say that he has their back is dangerous, because the fact of the matter is the science behind this issue just simply isn't there. So he's encouraging and actually using his office to legitimize practices that are in the end going to hurt children and cause them further problems down the road.
Dr. Bauwens, elaborate a bit on that. What are the risks from these hormones and also from the surgeries that minors and adults as well, but in this case, we're talking about minors, would undergo as a way to essentially treat a psychological problem?
Yeah. Well, there are a number of physiological issues that come with when you're on hormones or when you have surgeries done to your body to healthy organs that don't need to be removed. But those things are a little bit more obvious when you look at someone. You can tell their voice has changed, or you can tell that something's not quite right in their physique. But there are also hidden things like blood clots and cardiovascular issues. Those things may not be as readily evident on the surface. But then we have to look at the psychological consequences of these issues. This is less talked about when people are discussing this issue, and that is what is the long-term consequence of actually rejecting your body, rejecting your biological identity. We know that when people are depressed or they're having maybe some stress in their life, that their body can respond. We see cortisol levels elevated, and that's going to make someone more susceptible to disease. Now, what happens when someone says, I don't want anything to do with my identity, who I've been designed by God to be? There are no studies that look at that, but we do have some evidence when someone is dissociated that it's going to affect their body. So there are all kinds of consequences that the president did not address in the speech that he gave, other than just saying, hey, I have your backs. But we know that there are so many other consequences than just giving, this will make you feel better, and making people feel comfortable with the current dogma that's out there.
I think we would all say that we have their backs. We're just trying to help them, and we have different strategies as to what is actually helpful. Why do you think we hear so much encouragement for young people to undergo these ultimately permanent treatments and so much minimization of the potential risks?
Well, I think you have a lot of lobbying groups that are promoting these types of treatment. And then on the other hand, you don't have groups like, or departments like NIH saying, hey, we have some grant offerings for you to study the harms of gender transitions. Procedures. You have quite the opposite. The money is going towards building more gender clinics. It's going towards funding studies to look at why this is a good thing and to actually suppress the evidence that shows that we have, in fact, the online presence of those who are detransitioning and saying that the root issues, the root mental health issues aren't actually being dealt with. So, you have a whole system that's surrounding and embracing this ideology, and it's only now that we're starting to see the cracks in the dam, and people who have been affected by these things over the long term to start coming out and speaking out and saying, please don't do this to the next generation of children.
As the saying goes, I tried to follow the science, but it led me straight to the money. Now, Dr. Bauwens, what would you say to parents, family members who might be going through this, who are hearing all this pressure? Your only options are suicide or transition. Yeah.
And there's enormous pressure on parents who might be dealing with this or have a child who's dealing with this. And my encouragement would be, first of all, don't listen to the line that says that this is a life-saving practice, because it's anything but that. In fact, some of the research that's coming out right now is, and from their own transgender advocacy groups, show that those who are offered these treatments are experiencing suicidal ideation at the same level. So my encouragement would be to look for root causes. Where did this come from? Don't just buy the transgender line and go for that line of treatment, because it's not going to help the situation. It's only going to make things worse in the long term.
Dr. Jennifer Bauwens, and that is one of our biggest concerns, is if we treat the wrong symptom, we never get the chance to treat the real problem, the real root of the cause. And we appreciate you illuminating us all and your vigilance on this effort. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.